Thank you for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have 5 orders of business. We're going to go over the roleplay effects of Kovis Cog, our roleplay character, after his time on Coruscant. We're going to go over Coruscant as a planet in review, the characters and the environment. Then we're going to go further over the consular storyline as well as the gameplay involved, as we finally have been digging deeper into the features of SWTOR. Next we have wonderful news from Ronan Craft and wonderful news from our guild, the DIA, the Drakendu Intelligence/Information Agency. And without further ado, let's get into it. Grimdark. Half off! If you'd like to see my progress as I make new content, enlist today through YouTube memberships or Patreon to become a soldier in the Grimdark Legion. My thanks to the men and women who've already served, whose names are listed here. You keep darkness at an affordable price. Alright, so going into Kovis Cog, we have to talk a little bit about Yuan Par. And I've said this before, I said this in our first episode. Yuan Par is the key thing that makes people give up on and forget about the consular storyline. The problem is, Yuan Par is an interesting character in lore. The issue is that is not how she is presented in-game. And that problem right there is what causes so many people to just be like, I'm done. I signed up for the consular because I like the idea of the Jedi who uses more of the Force than the lightsaber, but you know what? We're done here. Well, I finally got to a point where I have to say, my view as a character and my view as a player finally started to line up again a little bit with Yuan Par, because Kovis actually is invested in Yuan Par. Kovis actually is invested in the horrible things that have been happening to this Jedi Master of peace, of decency in the galaxy, and that actually all became very clear with the reveal in the, and I'll give a heavy spoilers here, she goes serial killer crazy, starts talking about cutting out your organs and everything due to the insanity affecting her, and it's revealed she has a yellow lightsaber. Now, this is a big deal. She has a yellow lightsaber. You know what that means? Now, of course, we could say, oh, well, that means she's balanced between the Force and the physical. No. She uses a yellow lightsaber. Jedi Sentinels in the time of the Old Republic are the ones who use yellow lightsabers. While the Guardians are at war and the consulars are discovering the mysteries of the Force, what Yuan Par, what Jedi Mother Teresa was doing, was out there feeding the poor, furthering academic stations, doing basically charity work. That's what she was doing, improving the name of the Jedi. And what I was basically angry at was this nun not doing a triple-double backflip and beating up, doing a triple-double backflip and beating people up, basically. I was angry that this nun wasn't written as an action hero. And that's kind of the problem. Now, do I stand by my criticism of dry writing from Tython? Yes, absolutely I do. Yuan Par is still dryly written. She is not written to the exact way or detail she could be. There are fun ways to do nuns, and that's kind of the archetype she is. She is a charity-driven, and she's still like female Indiana Jones and stuff. Like, she's giving to the academic world just as much as she's giving to charity. But really hone in on the fact that she is a Jedi Sentinel. She is someone who is dedicated to improving the reputation of the Jedi and helping people, and it also makes more sense her relationship with Qui-Zen, the Transdoshan bounty hunter. It makes far more sense that he's a friend and he's around. Why wouldn't it? The reason, rather, he's not a bounty hunter, but he's a traditionalist Transdoshan, so that would make him very bounty hunter friendly. It makes more sense because she's trying to branch out. She's trying to understand new ways of life. So Yuan Par is someone who, again, in character, we have a lot of respect for. So what happened with her is we finally saw the end of her storyline. We'll get a little bit to that later. But we also got to make a yellow lightsaber as a Jedi Sentinel. Now, what happened throughout the storyline is that we actually became one of the few people left on the planet as the Jedi Consular, since that is the storyline we're doing, who can heal people using a Force technique from the Sith madness that Yuan Par was facing. And we did find out it was Sith madness. And so while in gameplay, I actually got this from a Flashpoint, I now have basically a yellow version of the Count Dooku lightsaber, which is pretty cool. So I'm basically a Makashi expert now. I really like that. But in lore, this is him fully embracing his role as a doctor and healer and someone whose goal it is to not just be a light side person, but be someone who's more public and improves the reputation of the Jedi. This is Kovis Cog fully embracing that as he makes that yellow lightsaber and that turn and commitment into being a Jedi Sentinel, which I really like from a roleplay perspective because we're really taking the Jedi into our own hands, aren't we? Because, you have that option to be a Guardian and a Sentinel. Technically, a Sentinel is a class, but it's not used the way it's used in the lore. Sentinel just means you have 2 lightsabers in gameplay. That doesn't mean anything. So we technically have the Guardian, moveset, like we said before. In the first episode, we have the Sentinel lore, which I really enjoy. So I was actually very grateful for the crazy Yuan Par boss fight because that is hands down the only time I as a player, not as a character, I as a player found Yuan Par very interesting. Just that moment that we got the yellow lightsaber. And that's when we find out. And that makes her fall even more tragic. But the good news is, of course, at the end of that storyline, she is now fully cured. And we actually got, in our letters, a follow-up from Naylan Rollick. Naylan Rollick, who is a much more interesting character, and sadly I probably will never see again. I actually went back to Tython to see if we could follow up with Naylan, the only anti-Twink Twillick, and see if I could get him as a companion, because I honestly... I like Quaizen better, but I would have traded him out for Naylan. I like the idea that he's a self-taught Sith who became a Jedi. He's becoming a Jedi. He needs someone to mentor him. He needs an unconventional mentoring technique because he's much older. And broing out with my favorite, because that's the thing. Kovis Cog, his whole thing with duty and honor and this strong sense of, he would make the perfect teacher, I feel, to Naylan. So I remember him very fondly. But we got a follow-up message from him just basically saying that he's doing all right. And I guess that's all right. So I put down here, just like with the yellow lightsaber, Kovis is fully embracing his role as a doctor healer, despite his warrior abilities. When it comes to Naylan and it comes to Yuan Par and them finally being free, relief, emotional catharsis, and ability to move on. And that's true just as much for Kovis Cog as a character as it is for me as a player. Honestly, as this storyline is opening up, we're moving into a Sith plague, being given the great duty and importance, and we'll talk about that next now. This great duty and importance. I'm so happy we're done with Yuan Par. Like I said before, she's very dryly written, and to make her interesting, you had to make her insane. But now we have this duty, this growth, this importance, and this mission giving way to a feeling of professionalism and purity with the Sith plague and us being given the only healing ritual throughout these entire trials that can actually solve this Sith plague. And basically we're now given carte blanche to go across the universe, and I'm actually on Terrace right now. I chose to go to Terrace. I love Terrace. Terrace is basically a Fallout planet in Star Wars. I could see myself living there. I'm a weird guy, but man, it's awesome. I fought Rakghouls, which are basically zombies in Star Wars, which are awesome. Also defeating the wannabe Sith. I have him down here as the wannabe Sith. He's the last boss fight you have to deal with after you learn the healing ritual, and you then just get to move on. But I like the fact that now that he's involved with the Sith in this kind of ideological war with the Sith, I gave him, because I've been experimenting with the outfits too, and I have 2 outfits, one that make him look like a heroic version, a heroic soldier version of Count Dooku, and one that makes him look like a one I called his Sith Hunter armor, which it looks like basically he stole a bunch of Imperial Commando gear and killed a bunch of Imperial Commandos and put that on and stole it from a Sith Lord. I call it his Sith Hunter gear and his Sith Hunter outfit. He now has an enemy in terms of the Sith that he can project all of his fears and anger and hate onto. And he's like, I think I'm going to kill some Sith today. I'm going to hunt down some Sith today. I'm going to make a Sith's day bad. If I can make the sandwich of a Sith on his lunch break taste worse, that's what I'm going to do today. So he's developing this kind of archetypal hatred for the Sith. That's going to be a part of his life. So, defeating the wannabe Sith, I really liked the way they made the wannabe Sith. I know he had a real name, but I'm going to call him the wannabe Sith. He had, for instance, Force Lightning, but it was very clear from the gloves he was wearing that the gloves were generating the Force Lightning. I thought that was a great touch. He had a purple lightsaber, which I know that Sith aren't bound to the red lightsabers in the Old Republic thing. I'm well aware of that. But still, it felt a lot like a Jedi who was desperate to come over to the Sith rather than being a full-fledged Sith. So that was very interesting to me. The characters simply functioned as a great introduction to and taste of the Sith to come. Again, also, I ran a bunch of Flashpoints and with friends, and man, was that fun. First, we got a bunch of gear and a bunch of gold and a bunch of fun stuff there, but also I got to kill a bunch of Sith. Oh man, having one companion that was there, Qui-Zen was here as our NPC healer. We had a dedicated Jedi Sage healer, and then we had a smuggler, and we had me doing damage. I was suicide tanking and doing damage, and another person was doing stealth damage. It was incredibly fun. But yeah, no, the wannabe Sith functions as a good introduction to the Sith, and I feel like my character now has this kind of well-rounded feel, and to integrate those flashpoints into his roleplay, I guess, he has a few more encounters with Sith, and just instantly takes them all out, and has these friends that he also has teamed up with to take out Sith before. So he has just this Sith vendetta, and kind of without realizing it, he's associated all of his trauma, all of the failings and sufferings in the world. You know, part of my character's backstory, if you guys watched Part 0, you'll know that Kovis Cog has a lot of his eye was lost, and 20% of the vision in his other eye was lost, in both cases because of a Wampa attack. As far as he's concerned, the Wampa were Sith. So that's what he's developing. He's developing a mental association of all things evil with Sith. His very human Nautolan biases are going to be coming out here. Okay, moving on to Coruscant, the planet in review. So, sadly, Coruscant is not like Tython in the sense that it's not as open world, but also it doesn't have as many monster designs for us to talk about. Really, what's there to talk about in Coruscant other than what Coruscant is, which is a city-sized planet? I will say that it does a wonderful job of creating a feeling of wealth disparity and a feeling of an open, large upper crust, but the deeper you go down, and famously in Star Wars lore, this is how Coruscant is. The deeper you go down, the more claustrophobic, toxic, painful, and harsh it really does become. So, yes, I realized that, I felt claustrophobic in some levels of Coruscant. Like, I genuinely hated being there, both as a player, and I think on some level my character did as well. I had actually a great dialogue option with Qui-Zen, which is, it's nothing but internalized world building within your own personal story. You get to decide whether or not your character likes nature or likes the city more. And Qui-Zen will bring up how he hates this, hyper-urbanized jungle that you're kind of in. No water, no plants, no jungle. And you can agree with him or disagree. My character chose to agree. And I noticed, though, and here's the thing, even though it made me feel claustrophobic as a player, it made me feel not so good being in certain areas of Coruscant as a player, the reason for that, I looked around and some of the signs where I was in like a red light district. I was in a lower level of Coruscant. The lower levels of Coruscant are absolutely accurately designed to have that kind of Arkham Asylum effect. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when it comes to the Arkham games, people argue often that the further out and further open world the Arkham games became, the more empty they became in terms of atmosphere. That the most atmospheric Arkham game was the original Arkham Asylum, because you had these very small areas that they were able to flesh out. And that's really a strength that we don't see in this game often, because a lot of times in Star Wars The Old Republic, one thing you're going to find is that everything is built to grand scale. There is room for you and 800 of your closest friends in, I don't know, a makeshift burger joint. I'm sure if they recreated the not McDonald's diner that Obi-Wan goes into with the basilisk shop owner, I'm sure that even he, even that building would be a room for 5 of your friends at every table. But it's still just that kind of, that ability to build a simple, small world. This is also when I started experimenting with speeders as well, so it helped a lot that I was able to get out of those tight situations and I didn't have to backtrack for hours and hours, so I finally started playing with the mounts or the fast travel, and I guess that's kind of maybe the meat of this episode, is really going to be less Coruscant itself, because that's really all there is to say about Coruscant. It's a solid, good city planet. Big, open up top, more claustrophobic as you go down. You can't travel open world style. You sadly do have to take the taxi, though I don't mind the taxi animations, because the taxi animations on Coruscant are very well done. They do present a good picturesque image of you traveling in this world made of pure city where people are busy, they're commuting from time to time. You get the idea that you are seeing the space plumber doing a job over here and the space trucker over there, and the guy sadly working at the space service industry job over there, and they're stuck in these dead-end jobs moving like ants in an anthill. And it really sucks, and they're living in their own late-stage capitalism while you're off having your Jedi adventures. It's depressing, but it's good world building. All right, so another thing that kind of stopped me from enjoying Coruscant, I'd say, as we're moving into the gameplay section, is that I did feel the artificial urgency of Yuan's storyline. The implication that the storyline kept giving me was that she was going to die. In fact, until we uncovered what the issue was, I really was convinced that the issue that we were dealing with wasn't so much a dark side plague of the mind, but rather it was a actual lethal, an actual lethal disease. But sadly, I don't hate Yuan Par that much. It wasn't. It was obviously a dark side plague designed to drive people mad and make key elements of the world go insane that would have been beneficial to the Jedi and the Republic. It's very much a sort of biological mental warfare. But yeah, no, I was in a hurry, both due to the artificial urgency of them. They kept telling me that Yuan Par was about to die when she was not about to die. In addition to that, we also dealt with the problem of, look, the Consular really is the slowest storyline. If you choose a storyline in SWTOR, choose any storyline that is not the Jedi Consular. The Jedi Knight, the Sith Juggernaut or Warrior, or the Sith Inquisitor, all of these are better storylines than what you have with the Consular. It is dry, it is slow, but more than that, it shipgated me behind Coruscant. I had to finish this long storyline that felt increasingly tedious, even though the storyline itself was not poorly crafted. What was poorly crafted was keeping me away from basic fast travel. Did it make sense when they gave me the fast travel? Of course. I'm not debating that. I'm debating solely the vibe. It felt off, it felt wrong having to wait that long, and it ultimately stopped me from being able to take my time in Coruscant and enjoy this weird city planet that I more than would have, I think, if I was not held back from what feels like playing the complete game. If every time I went to Galaxy Map, which was just this big thing over my character in this front main menu, if every time I went to Galaxy Map, you don't have your ship yet. You don't have your ship yet. If that wasn't constantly being shoved in my face, I would have enjoyed Coruscant a lot more. But let's get into some of the gameplay I really did enjoy, because honestly, a lot has happened. I'm a little bit through Taurus right now. I'm a little bit through what it's like to have my ship, have my time in-game, be able to explore the galaxy free. It's been fun, so finally getting my ship, running my first Flashpoint. I've killed Mandalorians and various alien smugglers and Sith, and it's all been cool. And I have my friend Jackinator from the Discord server, who you might know if you're in the Discord server is the guy who keeps welcoming you every time you show up to the Discord server. And he basically commando tanked for all of us and soloed these things, but made us feel like we helped, which was really nice of him. And these were really, really fun storylines to deal with. The last Flashpoint I ran was one where the ghost of a Jedi, we had to deal with the ghost of a Jedi in like kind of a poltergeist situation and fight a bunch of, I believe it was that we had to fight a Darth or rogue Sith alchemist. And this rogue Sith alchemist was someone who was really an intimidating boss fight. I remember we had a dedicated healer. A new character, a new player joined us who was a dedicated healer, and I actually had to switch my companion after he was constantly insisting the whole time, hey, wait, no, we don't need a second healer. We needed a second healer at that point because of how creative this boss was, and it used such a simple technique, which was drawing us in and then lightning storming us, but that simple technique broke our entire formation and was able to really break us. So this was a really good boss fight. The Flashpoints, I think, are where the most interesting battles are. Another thing that the Flashpoints don't get enough credit for is that your gathering skills and your crew skills, which are like off-color crafting things that you get to do, This is really cool because if you have skill in these crafting areas, you will literally get to take things and do things in these areas that benefit your crew and give you shortcuts to different places. I was able to do things with archaeology. Jackinator was able to do things with, I believe it was engineering. He was able to bring it to life droids to give us either increased health or a new companion. That was just incredibly cool. I loved having those little things there. Flashpoints are where it's at. You have the best gear. This is where I got the cool Count Dooku lightsaber, but it's also where I got a lot of nice, cool outfits gifted to me sometimes by people who couldn't use them, but other times my own, my own loot. It was just very good. I have nothing to complain about when it comes to Flashpoints. I think you should group up as soon as possible. I think this is the best part of the guild. Please stay for the guild, by the way. My guild mates are great, by the way. Stando Sky, Boots, Jackinator. Thank you guys so much, by the way, if you're out there, for putting up with me. They put up with so much for me. You guys who watch these videos know that it's not my usual content, and one of the reasons I'm doing these free-form SWTOR recap videos is that it's much easier on me given the amount of narcotics that I'm currently on due to my current prescribed regimen due to the cancer that I'm currently dealing with, and how we're pushing through and we're doing our best to move forward here and still create content for you. And this is sort of the test run. It's dry while I still try to get myself together and become someone who, even in this injured state, can provide content for you. But man, when I had like a pain problem or I had to bug out, they were super understanding, and I just had to appreciate that fully and completely. The last thing you ever want to be when you're someone with my condition or someone in my position is an inconvenience or a burden to people, and it was definitely very appreciative that they were understanding when I needed them to be. So a huge shout out to them, great people. Also, Stando Sky still needs to. This is a total sideline. Still needs to write the psych paper on the Night Lord. Still needs to do that. All right. So finally got my ship. We covered the Yuan Par stuff. Getting my first and second speeder. Okay, my first speeder looked awful. We called it the Ass Clencher 9000. Eventually, another guild member, Boots, also got an Ass Clencher 9000, except he committed to the Ass Clencher. Now, we call it the Ass Clencher 9000 because, and this is something Star Wars is really good at. I talked about this with Jackinator. The design of the Ass Clencher 9000, this speeder, this first mount that we got, yes, it looks like a professional piece of sleek sci-fi futuristic equipment, but it also looks like something that was slapped together with the least amount of efficiency, or rather, with the highest amount of cost efficiency possible, and something that basically costs the company the least amount of money. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, what I mean is that the speeder itself looks like half a speeder. It looks like the front part of a speeder that you have to pretend to sit squat on while the nerves in your butt become so tight and painful as you are riding on this thing. It genuinely is horrific. So then I finally got my second speeder after running so many flashpoints that I was loaded with credits, which, by the way, if you want to stock up on credits, again, flashpoints are amazing. But, after I got my second speeder, which looks more like a traditional rocket or, cruiser type thing, it looked like a jet motorcycle. Way better, way better. I would say that as a mechanic, I'm 2 levels into speeder, training, and being able to just go faster, being able to cruise across these maps definitely makes me appreciate them more. I don't feel trapped when I'm out in the world. I would say it's a feature worth investing in. It's definitely a feature worth using. It's not one that I feel pressured to use beyond the level that I currently have it at, but it is one that I appreciate being there, and it's good for what it is. And that's the kind of simple integrated mechanics that make you learn more about it, especially in a feature-rich and ultimately overwhelmingly feature-rich game like SWTOR. One of these things is just so wonderful, and that this game has done, is that it's integrated all these various features into, we just talked about in the Flashpoints, if you have certain gathering skills, they'll allow you to use those gathering skills to create shortcuts for your friends in Flashpoints. Well, in that same way, if you have the speeder and you're willing to get more, points in the speeder, you can now cruise across these same maps that otherwise you'd be trapped in a sort of cycle in, and you'd have to spend money on taxis, and you'd kind of be trapped on an island until you got a taxi. Now you're just cruising around, and it feels so fun. You feel so much more in control. and really enjoying my time in the area, going from different enemy to different enemy encounter. It never feels blocky, it never feels caged, so I enjoy the speeder mechanic as a whole. Finally getting a good outfit. I already talked about the cool, I got my Sith Hunter outfit, which I really enjoy, and I got my Good Count outfit, which I said was a good guy version of Count Dooku. I'd say it looks like if Obi-Wan was Count Dooku, basically. So I really enjoyed that. Both use the yellow version of the Count Dooku lightsaber, which I got during a Flashpoint, but we're saying that we're a Makashi, lightsaber duelist, and we recreated that lightsaber because that is what, Yuan Par would have been like. She was a Jedi Sentinel, or she's a Jedi Sentinel because she's alive in the story. Feels like she's dead because I don't want to see the character again because it's going to drain the energy out of the room. But, she was a Jedi Sentinel. We're going to be a Jedi Sentinel. So, yeah, that's about that. Let's move on to our wonderful sponsor, Ronin Craft. So I've already announced this several times on the Discord, but it's worth saying here too. Since our SWTOR recap videos gets the same amount of views as our Grimdark Star Wars videos do, we've actually made it so we've convinced our wonderful sponsor, Ronin Craft, to fund our videos on SWTOR, meaning that the subscription fee for SWTOR that I'm using to enhance the guild and thus give those same benefits to my guild mates who are sometimes free-to-play, sometimes preferred players, that now pays for itself. So we can't thank Daniel, aka Ronin Craft, enough. And we get into the real sponsorship here and the real ad for what he does. He is a 3D model printer. And the thing about his models, and the thing about his designs, and the thing about his product and what he delivers is that this is a man who works 3 jobs. He supports a family. He is just as much in his stage as I am right now, I would say. You see my 30K YouTube channel, and maybe you've seen my past videos when I'm more healthy. You see the work I put in. You see the source lists. It's that same way for the quality of product that Daniel, aka Ronin Craft, produces. He is one of, if not the best people in the business of what he does. He's so good he's been attacked by Games Workshop, of which he filed counter DMCA claims and made it through. So don't let that be silenced. Don't let that hard work be silenced. Really get yourself, if you're in the business for some minis, whether they're Star Wars minis, whether they're any kind of 40K, whether they're sci-fi, fantasy, history, get yourself something from Ronin Craft, because with Ronin Craft, you will find quality that surpasses any master. Truly thank you to Daniel. Truly thank you to Ronin Craft. Now let's move on to some wonderful guild news about the Drukendu Information Agency. Now, those of you who know me and know why I set up this guild, you know that it's a very fan fiction, very roleplay heavy guild, and that is based around enriching the story you've written for your character. It's a non-intrusive guild to join that, in addition to whatever else it is your character is doing out in the world, as a side mission, much like your character would join, say, the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim or Oblivion from the Elder Scrolls franchise, you join the Drukendu Intelligence Agency or Information Agency. And, I gotta say, there are a lot of people, a lot of players in the world, but, I feel like I connect to you in a special way. And as I get down on bended knee here, I have to ask you, will you let me read your backstory? Because I think that's easily the most intimate question you can ask someone. So those of you who have seen the last episode, you know that I've made up these nice badges. They're based off of real FBI badges, and in lore of the Drukendu Information Agency, this gives you basically access to the Drukendu warehouses and storehouses if you need a place to hide out, and strongholds and places like that, where you can hide from authorities or get together information or money you need to make it past a certain checkpoint as you're doing a mission as an assassin, a thief, or a spy for the Drukendu Information Agency, whatever type of agent you are. And when you make one of those and you attach your backstory to it, from now on, and that goes for my friends too that I mentioned earlier in the episode, I really hope they do this, but if you attach that badge, if you make that little badge for your character, and you attach your backstory to it, and you post it in our Drukendu Information Agency, I will pin it in that channel on our Discord, and it will be automatically entered into a contest of just me reading through the backstories and me saying, man, I really like this backstory, let's review it and go over it. So actually, I'm going to read for you the announcement that I did in the Drukendu Information Agency channel here. So, Great Guild news, everyone. I'd like to introduce background contests and mission quests. From now on, if you put your background story in this Discord channel while tagging me and putting your DIA badge attached to it, it will be automatically entered into a contest where, if you want, I will review it on the next SWTOR set of videos. So the next SWTOR video, if this is part 2, we'll have a part 3, part 4, etc. I won't be reading it exactly, but instead talking about what I liked about it, giving positive feedback, and just general praise where praise is due. The other reason I won't be able to read it in full is that many of you know that I am still not well and am on several medications which make reading long-form scripts very hard for me through double vision and similar symptoms. However, I feel you, and I feel you will enjoy this compromise as well. All right, and this next part I'm actually super excited about, and this is mission quests. Okay, so mission quests aren't anything special. I'll read for you what they are. These are writing prompts designed to help your character involve itself further in the guild. No one can claim the quests, as in the canon of your character, they are the one who completed the quest if they choose to accept it. And so, of course, other characters do it too. These consist of a mission in line with the type of agent your character is, spy, thief, or assassin, followed by an obstacle that they have to overcome designed to spur creativity in your story. Spies have marks who they need to get information out of without blowing their cover or killing everyone. Thieves have jobs consisting of items they have to steal with minimal violence, though some is acceptable, take it by ear or feeling, and have a drop-off location they need to put that item at. Finally, assassins have targets consisting of obvious enemies of the Drokendu Information Agency, followed by a series of obstacles that will be more obvious than the other missions, but serve their purpose as creativity enhancers, knowing that your only regulation is to get away with your life as an assassin who just killed a usually high-ranking or powerful person. Spies' marks are in orange, thieves' jobs are in gold, and assassins' targets are in purple. And so I wrote up these writing props, and I'm going to read actually a few of them for you here. So here's the job featuring the Chiss Artistic Catalog. And of course, this job is for thieves. If you are a thief-type agent, here is your job, the Chiss Artistic Catalog job. The owner that you have to look out for, his name is Tisho Evan Florku, aka Tars. Obstacles. The mysterious Chiss Ascendancy has acquired a hidden sorcery grimoire disguised as an art catalog of the Dathomirian people. The secrets held within could unleash dark spirits of madness onto the world. It is being held in a safe protected by several alien mercenaries employed by Tars, implying the transport being something they also want to keep private. You must sneak past the mercs, get the catalog, and return it to Dathomir before a war between local Hutt-funded criminals and the dark side-focused world breaks out. And then as a little note, Tars is the only Chiss on board, so the rest are a collection of alien mercenaries that we leave up to your imagination, and this is just an example of a writing prop. Now, moving on to the spies. Your mark is High Priest Nulvi Brumia, and the intel that you're looking for is location of an ancient map. Obstacles. The leader of an obscure cult of a Nemoidian religion too complex for outsiders to learn of. Without using the religion as an endpoint, you must get him to disclose this information without blowing your cover. He is known to collect slaves, enjoys underwater opera, and has a favorite restaurant he goes to every day at the same time for dinner. So using one of those 3 endpoints rather than his religion, you have to get into him. I made him a priest who you can't use the religion of, so that's your little sort of creativity spur there. It's something I like doing. It's a lot like when they stopped the creators of Samurai Jack from being able to use blood, and now we have those cool, iconic, inky, robot villains. And of course, your target and I had fun with the target. The target is a Hutt serial killer. So your target as an assassin, if you're that type of agent. His name is Obsa Skand the Brute. Reason, mass unregulated slavery. Obstacles. Okay. While slavery is a common practice among the Hutt race, Absa the Brute has crossed lines that even other Hutts who have reached out to us need him taken out for. He is a walking war propaganda poster against the Hutts. Upon taking his victims to his underwater palace in an isolated part of Glien Selm, the Nautilin homeworld, he tortures them to death slowly for his entertainment, with a particular focus on the abuse of children. So you got an Absa Scott, you got a Hutt serial killer, you have a Nemoidian obscure religion, and you have a sort of Chiss transport of an ancient evil grimoire. And if that doesn't excite you, I apologize, but these were just fun little storylines I thought would help engage your creativity. And I really enjoyed doing these. If we get in any way a decent response rate, even if I don't, I'm still at least going to try to do these once a month and see if people really enjoy them. One more thing I forgot to mention. So when it comes to the Imperial half of the guild, because guilds are only for one side or the other, you can't have a co-Imperial and Republic guild. I do have plans to move the guild into an Imperial area. I do finally have an Imperial character I'd like to play. I have an idea for a Sith pureblood who basically his entire family train as Sith assassins, but they're very casual about it, and they have these otherwise very wholesome interactions other than the fact that they're like brutal and they worship the dark side and view themselves as Jedi hunters, but they have this heroic, view of themselves. And I really like the idea of an actual like Black Knight to meet Kovis Cog. Whereas the character of Kovis Cog and the grit of Kovis Cog comes from the horrors that he's been through in the past. I would say that for this Sith pureblood character, the thing that would make him interesting, thing that would make him fun, is that he has a fully traditional and ethnic view of the dark side that only a Sith pureblood could have. Because of that, he has, yes, a view of the dark side in quotes, but in reality, this is a fairly neutral view because it's actually something of a species-wide view, and it's actually controlled more by parahuman or human psychology than it is by anything else. Because when you deal with these people who rationalize the dark side, you're usually dealing with people who, like Darth Plagueis, view equality as a general lie and a dangerous one. This is the kind of thing that dark side users who rationalize the dark side, they talk about how dangerous propaganda-like the Jedi are, and that's pretty much how the Jedi Hunter family of this Sith pureblood will view the Jedi. And you'll have I already have an idea in my head for like my character's uncle. And, his uncle is so proud of the fact that he killed a Jedi and he uses a blue saber staff to kill Jedi. And it's a reminder. It's like, this is your head. Like if you hunted werewolves and you had a werewolf head, he's basically the silver hand from Skyrim. Okay, that's all. I do have plans to move in the Imperial direction. Sadly, at this time, we do not have an Imperial guild, but in the spirit of roleplay, we will get there, but we will get there in a thematically appropriate time. So, moving on to the goodbyes. All right, that concludes this episode and all of our orders of business. Thank you very much for watching. You are very kind for sitting through this phase of the channel and me. I deeply appreciate it, and I hope these thoughts on SWTOR were a little bit refreshing. I don't see anyone tackle the game this way, even though this series doesn't get much attention. It doesn't get much attention as our Conan content. Obviously, our Star Wars stuff doesn't. But I still enjoy it, and right now it's kind of very therapeutic for me to focus on Star Wars instead of Conan. But obviously, as I am recovering, as I get the surgeries I need to get, as we move through that phase of my life, obviously we will try to get back to Conan. And even if it doesn't, even if I don't get what I need and this phase of my life does stretch on for longer than I need it to, I promise we will get back to Conan eventually, and we will do some wonderful stories there. We did promise long-form Conan content, and we will deliver. So thank you so much for that, and have a wonderful night. And yes, I know I'm doing that weird thing where I keep saying we, even though I'm a one-man operation, but I feel like it's a we because it's a community, so I say we, and I use the royal we because I feel connected to people through the channel. Anyway, have a great night.